Many thanks to Chris Gould and the whole team for putting on a great show last night, a terrific debate watch party over at the Florida State Fairgrounds. Met a whole bunch of neat listeners, and it just a lot of young people, too, last night. I was so positive and enthused about how many young faces I saw in the crowd. A lot of young men and women who are, engaged in the process, who are excited about the process, who are knowledgeable about the candidates. A lot of young Ron Paul supporters as well. We're going to talk to Chris here in just a moment, who wants to defend Ron Paul. And Rick Santorum really lashed out at Congressman Paul over his position regarding our foreign policy and 9/11. Let me just quickly tell you the story. There was a behind-the-scenes, backstage jockeying among the candidates about who would appear at the post-debate party that I was emceeing first. That was a very big deal for some reason. And two of the camps sort of got into it. They both started coming over before the debate was over, jockeying for position. One of the candidates the first candidate confirmed that they would be first. The other candidate wanted to best that candidate and appear before that candidate. All right, so you get the picture, and the representatives from the two campaigns are all coming to us trying to jockey for position, and they both wanted to be first. That was a very big deal that the one would go ahead of the other one. I'm not going to tell you who it was, because, again, I think that would violate my spirit of being positive about all the candidates, although this didn't have a thing to do with any of the individual candidates. This was on behalf. These were the staffs. These were the aides and the consultants and the camp. These were the people, working the campaign. Anyway, when the moment came, and the one that was expected to go first didn't arrive, the other one did arrive. Okay, so let me just put it to you this way. Let me. How do I describe this? Let's just say Team A. All right, Team A was in place. Team B shows up with the candidate at the back door of our venue, which is propped open. And I'm standing in there with the microphone because I'm going to visit with each candidate backstage for a little bit and then go out and introduce them. Team A is expected to go first. The aides for Team A are inside the door. Team B shows up in the motorcade. The cars roll up, and out pops the Team B candidate. Do you know the Team A aides slammed the door and locked the candidate out of the venue? And they are literally banging on the metal door, screaming, let us in, we have candidate B here. I was mortified. I'm standing there sweating bullets thinking they have locked out who the guy or woman, I'm not going to tell you who it was, who may be the next president of the United States. We cannot have this person standing out there banging. And I'm not so certain it wasn't the candidate, him or herself, banging. I mean, I thought, you've got to, and meanwhile, and you got to picture this, while the banging is happening on the outside, the representatives of Team A, who locked Team B out, are standing right on the other side of the door with their arms folded. And I said, guys, I don't think we can do this. And they said, we're not letting that person in. I mean, it was awful. It was and this, I realized in a flash, this is hardball politics. This is bare knuckles. We'll do what we got to do for our candidate. And if it means locking the door, we're locking that person out. It was bizarre. Well, long story short, the doors finally got open. Team B candidate strode in confidently, big smile, handshakes, went right to the stage. There was no stopping Team B. So ultimately, Team B got to go first, ahead of Team A. And Team A was not very happy about it. But I mean, it's funny because it was like, and then I shared some of this with a couple of the other candidates. And one of the other candidates I won't mention is like, how childish, how petty. That's what's wrong with politicians. This is what people don't like about the political process. I've never seen anything like this before. And I'm sorry. I hope I haven't, I guess, if I open up my big mouth and I shouldn't have, I'm sorry, but I just thought you had to know, because that's the kind of stuff that goes on behind the scenes during a presidential campaign. Our toll-free number is 800-655-MIKE. All right, let's go to Chris here, a Ron Paul supporter. A lot of Ron Paul supporters there last night. They're enthusiastic. They're boisterous. They're engaged. I love these guys. I do. I really love them. And I love Ron Paul. I've never criticized. One guy came up to me last night and said, well, you're wrong to denigrate Ron Paul the way you do. I said, I've never denigrated Ron Paul. Don't confuse me with other radio hosts who have. Because I think the Ron Paul phenomenon is impressive. I don't agree with Ron Paul on everything. I don't agree with any of these guys on everything. I particularly have questions about Ron Paul's position over the terrorist attacks. Here's what Rick Santorum said about Congressman Paul evidently blogging about 9/11 earlier in the day.
On your website on 9/11, you had a blog post that basically blamed the United States for 9/11. On your website yesterday, you said that it was our actions that brought about the actions of 9/11. Now, Congressman Paul, that is irresponsible. A president of the United States someone who's running for the president of the United States in the Republican Party should not be parroting what Osama bin Laden said on 9/11. We are not being attacked, and we were not attacked because of our actions. We were attacked, as Newt talked about, because we have a civilization that is antithetical to the civilization of the jihadists. And they want to kill us because of who we are and what we stand for. And we stand for American exceptionalism. We stand for freedom and opportunity for everybody around the world. And I am not ashamed to do that.
30 seconds, Mr. Paul.
As long as this country follows that idea, we're going to be under a lot of danger. This whole idea that the whole Muslim world is responsible for this and they're attacking us because we're free and prosperous, that is just not true. Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda have been explicit. They have been explicit, and they wrote and said that we attacked America because you had bases on our Holy Land in Saudi Arabia. You do not give Palestinians a fair treatment, and you have been bombing. I didn't say that. I'm trying to get you to understand what the motive was behind the bombing. At the same time, we had been bombing and killing hundreds of thousands of Iraqis for 10 years. Would you be annoyed? If you're not annoyed, then there's some problem.
All right, we're going to stay on this subject. We have a question.
All right, so that's going to be a tough thing for Ron Paul, I think, to overcome. But Chris says he wants to defend it. He was a Ron Paul supporter who was at the Florida State Fairgrounds last night. Hey, Chris, welcome to the Mike Gallagher Show.
Hey, Mike, good to be with you.
Thanks. We met last night, you said?
Yeah, I got a picture with you and talked to you briefly. And, I think what a lot of people miss on this, and it's 10 years later. I mean, it's time we have an honest conversation about it. I think most people in the Middle East understand, that we're there for oil. They don't hate our freedom. And the concept that Dr. Paul speaks about so frequently is blowback. And, I mean, it's a fairly simple concept. We're not unique as Americans that if China or Russia put troops and bases on our soil, we'd get ticked off and we'd probably fight and we'd probably even be willing to sacrifice our lives for the freedom and the future of our freedom of our country. And
you'd agree that's
what people are doing.
Yeah, you'd agree though that's a real sort of anti-mainstream position, right? And let's face it,
I don't think so. I think
we got no. You heard
mainstream.
the whole room booed him. I mean, he got booed. I mean,
he got booed when he said the Palestine thing, and that wasn't his words. He was quoting bin Laden.
Well, that's right. And the terrorists often cite our actions as the reason for what they did. So basically, Ron Paul is in the unenviable position of sort of siding with the terrorists in terms of why they hit us on 9/11. That's a very tough. I think Chris,
it's an enviable position, Mike, because he's the only guy on that stage that stands for peace.
Let me tell you something.
The only guy that'll actually do what he says and bring the troops home.
Let me tell you something. That guy's got guts. There's no question about it. He speaks his mind, even when it flies in the face of conventional wisdom. And I know that's why he has so much support from people like you. Ultimately, Chris, I think you have to ask yourself, yourself, though, because you got to be practical. You got to be pragmatic. Can that position that our actions led to 9/11, which is basically what he's saying, and he's citing the terrorists' reasons for why they've attacked us so many times and attacked us all over the world, can that position get him elected president of the United States, Chris?
I think that's a simplified way of putting it, but his stance on peace, I think, will draw a lot of the Democratic voters over to our side, and I think he is the only person that can beat Obama on the Republican side.
Yeah, there's no question. He could attract a lot of Democrat voters with that position because let's face it, Chris, a lot of real radical liberals like that position or have stated that position. I'm glad you called, though, Chris. And good to meet you last night, and good to meet the Ron Paul supporters who are a very passionate, loyal bunch. Coming up,